Your wife is triggered too easily because of her traumatic upbringing. She has unrealistic expectations and doesn't appreciate what you do. And women are never happy in a relationship, which is why the initiation of divorce is 70% for women. It's your wife's fault you are getting divorced, right? If you ever thought any of those statements, even once, then you must listen to this video, because in the next few minutes, I'm gonna show you how thinking those thoughts are the core reason why you are at where you are at in your marriage right now. And so I'm gonna show you an idea that unlocks unlimited opportunities to win your wife back. This idea is the one thing holding you back, not just in your marriage, but I would also argue in life, okay? So by the end of this video, when you watch to the very end, you're gonna gain the ability to soften her cold exterior, gain a complete understanding as to why she doesn't really appreciate you as much as she should. I'm gonna show you the most powerful insight about relationships you haven't heard yet, and a psychological trick that will bring forth confidence in every situation with her. And when I say confidence, I mean you'll take those moments that you're locked in your head, searching for the right thing to say to soften her, and instead, you'll lead with effortless conversations that turn into romance and connection. And the first concept is that you are her guide. Let me ask you a question. When you first met your wife, did you go up and talk to her? Are you the one who first asked her on a date? Or are you the one that first waited for the kiss? And did you ask her to be your girlfriend? And finally, are you the one that proposed to her? The point is that you led every step along the way. You are the leader, and she wants to follow your lead. You see, we get to relax when someone tells us what to do, where to go, how things should be. It's why you're listening to me right now. It takes effort and energy to learn these things on your own. So someone who leads you, it's valuable. But you stopped leading when things got tough. As an example, Rob was a guy who had no problem attracting women. Just masculine confidence oozed out of him every sense of the word, right? He rode a motorcycle, played sports, was in great shape, driven by his career, like really high catch for a guy, right? One night at a bar with his friends, they were headed to the men's room when he passed by Jackie, standing nearby, just waiting for a friend outside. With her long, dark black hair, olive complexion, and a red dress that could melt the polar ice caps, Rob halted in his tracks, was just drawn by another force. He was like, whoa, hello. He's like, what's your name? I gotta know. She's like, Jackie. Had a little curious grin on. You're stunning. I'm just gonna say it. He handed his drink to his friend and said, you hold this. Then he turned to Jackie and said, you don't go anywhere. I'm talking to you when I get out of the bathroom. She was like, okay, maybe. Needless to say, they hit it off that night and just clicked instantly. From then on, Rob didn't look back. Months later, they moved in together. 2 years later, he proposed and they eventually got married and had 2 kids, and the rest is history up until it wasn't anymore. When Jackie said, I'm done, I'm leaving you. So how did he go from that love to that? Like, what happened, right? Well, you see, after 8 years of marriage, their situation changed a lot. Yeah, sure, raising 2 kids brought on unexpected stress with sleepless nights and differing parenting styles. It was a constant balancing act between work and alone time. But as their lives became more hectic, they started to drift emotionally. Date nights disappeared and they found themselves more like roommates than loving partners. Things got worse when their communication eventually broke down as well, where little misunderstandings and unspoken frustrations turned into just full-blown arguments, bickering, shutting down, not talking at all much for like days at a time. And then Rob got a new job and started working more because it was further outside of town. And the hours were later, and so Jackie had less time, with the kids and support in the household. So naturally, she stepped up and started making more decisions. But even though she was good at it, Rob didn't realize that Jackie was suffering. She was stressed out, and he wasn't around her enough to check in with her. They always talked about the kids and the bills, and it just never, how are you? How are we? Right? She recognized all the things he was doing to provide for the family, but every time she brought up her own feelings, he immediately got defensive. It was like, I'm doing all this stuff, like I'm working my butt off for the family. Don't you see that? And so Jackie just learned to just keep it inside and not share it. She didn't feel safe enough to. And then that led Rob to walk on eggshells around her constantly, and he couldn't even bring up his emotions. And it was just this one night, Rob came home from a long day of work and he just wanted to unwind. And Jackie tried one more time to talk and he shut her down again. And it seemed so innocuous, not a big deal, but that was the straw. And she said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving you. I want space. It was like she threw ice water onto his face. He was like, wait, what? It came out of nowhere for him. Yeah, things weren't as good as they used to be, but to end the marriage, are you serious? She was tired of running the family with nothing in return, no support, no help, not feeling heard, just not validated, just not connected to this man that she used to be in love with. They were strangers in the same roof. And the worst part was she was like, I felt like this for years. Rob felt gutted, then angry, then heartbroken. In a panic, he tried to convince her to stay, promising things that would change, I'll come home more, we'll go to see a therapist, I'll do whatever it takes. This is a drastic step. I wish I knew about this. Let's try to work this out at least, right? But he didn't realize that he lost something that he used to have a long time ago. Something that he was all over her in the beginning, right? She was everything to him, and that's all she really wanted. And the thing is that you most likely told her yourself, your wife, that you fell in love with her and that you love her, and then she followed. And that's the idea of taking the lead. There's a study showing that men actually say they fall in love first. See, the thing is that you started the process of leading with vulnerability and love. You bypassed your overthinking mind and just threw out how you felt. You took a risk. You went toward fear in the hopes of something great happening, and you won. But somewhere along the line, that leadership just stopped. Resentment and bickering, complacency set in. She felt it. Now you hold back your true emotions in fear of how she'll respond. You have become afraid, fearful of her dark moods, shutting down, criticizing, and being downright disrespectful to you. So what do? How do you turn things around? You must be her guide toward connection again. The masculine leads her to connection. Remind yourself of the end goal you had in mind with her. Share your vision of the relationship and then guide her every step along the way. Marriage wasn't the final destination. You see this. In order to lead her again, you must first know the source of her criticism and how to overcome it. Now, this will lead to the next principle. She is the relationship's heartbeat. So why does she criticize and test so much? You know when you have one of those days, things just go wrong, right? So for Kevin, for example, one morning he spilled coffee on his new shirt, right? And it was on the way to work. He couldn't change. He was in a rush. Hit every red light, right? His boss made him redo an expense report. And all he wanted to do when he got home was have the family dinner, take a shower, nice warm shower, watch TV with his wife, play with his kids, go to sleep. But he came home with a huge sigh and saw his wife angry. She also had a very hard day. She began to unload her stress onto Kevin. He was able to listen to her and not solve her problems, but when the dust settled, he ate his meal, went to the couch to watch his show, thinking he won with his wife. She turned to him and paused and says, we don't spend time together anymore. He's like, I'm spending time with you right now. Like, what's going on? This led to another argument. And Kevin said some words that he regretted because he was stressed out. So what happened here? You see, it's in her natural state to have an unconscious pulse on the health of the relationship. A woman's emotional radar is finely tuned to the nuances of her relationship, allowing her to detect the unseen fractures that may threaten its foundation. What this means is that she intuitively knows how you guys are doing. When there hasn't been enough love, connection, fun, excitement, depth, and more, she feels it. An example of this with myself, with my partner. She said, we don't go on any dates. I took her on a date the previous week and we were gonna go on vacation, and a few weeks later, of course, my natural response was like, I'm thinking like all the things I'm doing for this woman, right? All the effort and energy and everything I put in. But she was right. I didn't take her on dates recently, and she was voicing a need, and I took it defensively. Instead of seeing that as like, hey, I want to go on a date with you. I love going on dates with you. I took it as like, oh, what, I'm not fun enough for you? Like, oh, what does that mean? Like, defensively, you see? I let my ego get in the way. And so many men do this. Instead of pausing, remaining unreactive, what you do instead, what I did is, after I got a little upset, those initial thoughts, I didn't react to them. I was like, you know what? We're taking you on a date. And that weekend I did, right? And of course, she threw a test out again saying like, oh, you're only doing this because, I asked you, which if you want to learn how to respond to tests, at the end of the video, I'll have a whole video showing you how to do that. Regardless, you cannot take it defensively. See those criticisms as a request in disguise. I want you to imagine that the marriage is this plant that she checks on every single day. Now, the sunlight is your undivided conscious attunement. The water is the emotional validation, and the soil is your grounded masculinity. She feels it wither away when it does and dies. Okay, so instead of feeling annoyed and frustrated, underappreciated when she criticizes, have gratitude that she can recognize the feelings of disconnect. And as a man who loves her and wants to make her happy, give her the gift to help her feel loved, right? That she values. She values connection and love over everything else in life. That's what creates life. So therefore, when you're not into harmony or union with her, she feels the disconnect and thus complaining occurs. Now, one of the best ways to lower her criticism is to see the patterns that she points out in you, right? Areas of your life to work and improve on, which we're going to talk about in this next concept. She is your mirror. She treats you in the beginning of the relationship how she wants to be treated and treats you how you treat her towards the end. She is your mirror. The beginning of the relationship shows you how you should feel towards her. That early point of love, it's that time where it's like, that is a purview into how things should be. Now, it's impossible to maintain that feeling long-term, but it is something to strive for. And as time goes on, however, our real selves tend to come forward, right? The parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of, that push others away. These psychological blind spots are the cause of conflict in your marriage.
I'll tell you something that I learned to do when I was arguing with my wife, which happened quite frequently, because when you actually communicate with people, you find out that there's many things that you don't agree on. And that's because you're actually different creatures. And so if you're actually going to have a truthful conversation, then you're going to find out that you don't see things the same way. And then you can either pretend that that's not the case and gloss over it and then end up in a 30-year silent war, or you can have the damn fight when you need to have it and see if you can straighten it out.
These aspects of yourself are served to protect you in earlier relationships and environments, but now they are detrimental towards the love that you want most, okay? There is a pattern of what she criticizes you about who you are as a man, your values, your behaviors, your identity, your habits. You must identify these patterns and see what they are, and then see what they are compromising in her and why you struggle to overcome that, and then work to improve that. And your ability to have that awareness, it's oftentimes almost impossible on your own, because when we look at ourselves, like, you're so in the trees, you're surrounded by it, you can't see from that 30,000 foot perspective. So with that first step, this is what our marriage evaluators are experts at doing. After taking thousands of calls, each of our marriage evaluators, within seconds, they can hear a situation and be like, this is exactly what you should do. So if that's important to you and you see it as valuable, you can set up a free call down below, but just make sure you're fully committed to wanting to save the marriage. Now, to be a loving leader, you must be the apex man, the guy that combines both the man she wants, the masculine protector and the emotional provider. In order to do this, you must know how to become her gardener. So I already laid out to you early in the video the analogy of being the gardener, the different things she needs, right, with the relationship being the plant. Now, let's go over some practical ways that you can tend to the relationship garden. So I said sunlight is your undivided conscious attunement. So in order to improve that, you must get out of your head and hold space for her. What this means is that whenever she is upset about something, she has conflict, she's just irritated, or whatever the case may be, it is imperative that you are able to just sit there, look at her, take in what she says, give her that nonverbal affirmation, and don't feel like you have to defend yourself or solve her problem. You are just looking at her with no words in your mind. Now, your ability to do this is equated to meditation. So the more you meditate, the more you're able to increase this skill. All right, so the water is the emotional validation. So for this one, it is simply just knowing how to use the you fill blank because statements that I talk about a lot in my program. Now with the ground of leadership, it's about passing her test. And like I said before, there'll be a whole other video at the end of this one telling you exactly how to pass every single test she gives you at different stages of the relationship. And when you do those three things, it'll bear fruits of desire, love, admiration, and respect. Now, Iman was a powerful, intimidating guy, super intelligent, hyper masculine. I told him so myself that I was intimidated by this guy. He had a very high power position as a consultant, and he would work with top multimillionaires, billionaires, and politicians, and he would dominate those meetings and make them look up to him, right? Command respect. But he told me when it came to his wife, he became a metaphorical 7-year-old boy on his knees seeking validation. How can someone who is so high status in different domains of his life turn into this child, immature, reactive with his wife? It's almost like he was two different people. Now, this is a common idea that a lot of men face, which is like, you can be this dominant, confident, free-flowing, unreactive man in your workplace or with friends, but with her, you're not. Why? Have you ever thought about why this is? Now, this comes down to the idea of role plays. You see, in every different environment, we are different people. Even if it's just micro switching, context switching with different friends, workplace, family members. Myself, when I go home with my dad and my brother, I'm better at it now, but I would turn into my older self. I would not be as talkative. I would be shy. That's who I was growing up in my family. I know it doesn't seem that way because how much I, sociable on camera, but it's true. So why does this happen and how do we overcome it? Well, the reason why this happens is because our brains are pattern recognition machines, okay? And so as an example with Iman, with his mother would yell at him, right, growing up as a child. And his response to angry emotions from the woman that he was connected to, attached to, was to go inward and shut down. Because that was his unconscious process, almost like software coding into his brain, his wife played out the same pattern, and unconsciously, without being aware of it, he was becoming the same person with his wife. This is the whole idea of like, you are the way you are with your mother and you date your father. And as a woman, like Sigmund Freud was right in a lot of ways, okay? And when it comes to attachment theory, this is how it plays out. So the question is how do you overcome this pattern and take the situation of the man you are being confident in one place and put that down with your wife? Well, our coaches have a specialized process in doing this, but I will give you the best step, which is already you have pattern recognition. So recognize it and then choose a different response. It is that simple. The difficulty isn't in the process, it is in the application, right? You can know something, oh yeah, just do this, but like your emotions are the things that get in the way, right? So for Iman, what this was for him is that he did role plays with the coaches, right? The coach would, like one of our female coaches would act as his wife. They play out the same scenario and he would respond the way he wanted to. And then when he started doing it with his wife, he was getting a different result, right? Because he was like, instead of going unconsciously reacting, like there's no time to view like how his emotions were affecting with his wife, Iman had no time to slow down and have that pattern recognition. But the more he practiced with our coaches, the more he meditated, and he was able to recognize, oh, I'm starting to feel sad or intimidated or this or that. He was able to let that emotion pass through the meditation, and through the role play, he was able to create different responses, which produced different responses in his wife. And because he was the man, he led the relationship to a new place. Now, I talked about the testing video, so you can watch it. It's going to be on screen somewhere. Like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you are new here. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.